the candidates for the board seat, the candidates for the board seats will be allowed an opportunity to speak a little bit later in the meeting. But first of all, we have a little business we'd like to take care of. Welcome to the Coastside Fire Protection District Board of Directors meeting, regular board meeting, May 26, 2021. Roll call, please. Jean.
President Burke,
Here.
Vice President Cockrell,
Here.
Director McKimmey,
Here.
and Director Stockman,
Here.
Chief Larkin. Yes,
Yep, I'm here.
okay, and Cosgrave, and I understand that Jonathan will be there later,
Yep.
okay? And
And-
Jean Savary,
Here.
anybody else besides me?
Thank you. Please join me in the
Okay.
Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, liberty
and justice for all.
Do we have any public comment? Not people who are applying for the board seat, but are there any other individuals who would like to make any public comment on any subject at all?
Anybody?
Nobody there, Chief Cosgrave?
There's one woman.
Jill Grant?
If there's somebody that would like to make a comment who is not a candidate for the open seat, please go forward, make a statement, a question.
Can I talk?
Yes,
Yes.
you're unmuted.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to comment. My name is Jill Grant. I'm a newly elected Mid-Coast Community Council member, but tonight I speak as a private citizen. By now, you have read the MCC letter regarding the excessive exterior lighting at the new fire station, number 41 in El Granada. I am here to request alterations to the exterior lighting. The new fire station 41 is built within the El Granada Gateway zoning district on an area where buildings should represent the character of El Granada. It does not. The fire station parcel is not zoned commercial and thus cannot be compared to adjacent commercial development, since the only commercial area is on Avenue Portola, which is separated from Station 41 by a large, dense riparian area. There are commercially zoned properties at the southern end of Avenue Alhambra, but they've since been developed and are now 100% residential. Fire Station 41 is also built in a protected view corridor. As a condition of its project permits, the fire district promised that this building would not impact the protected view corridor. However, Fire Station 41's lighting, including excessive Cobra head street poles and tall walkway poles, do indeed impact this view corridor. Why is this such a big deal? The fire district has either purposely or inadvertently set a new standard of exterior lighting on the coast by the installation of this non-compliant, intense white LED lighting on tall poles directly in a view corridor of the Pacific Ocean. Why is it a big deal if the fire district sets a new precedent on the coast? Well, will this new standard then be applied at other coastal fire stations, perhaps as an upgrade to the Moss Beach Fire Station, also built in a protected view corridor of the Pacific Ocean, or at your headquarters in Half Moon Bay, which currently operates with minimal lighting of amber color. Street poles are more than 100 feet apart. There are no exterior lights on the engine bays, and the walkway is lit by decorative 4-foot-tall, warm amber lit bollards. If the exterior lighting at the El Granada Fire Station 41 is a new standard, let me be the first to tell you it is unacceptable. Please honor your permit conditions and your promises made to the community. Adhere to the policies of the LCP and remove all fixtures in the view corridor and change to amber bulbs to mimic the lighting at your district headquarters in Half Moon Bay. Thank you for listening. I would appreciate a response to my comments. A future email would be fine.
Thank you, Jill. I would remind just the board members, and I'm not going to wish to get into a conversation on this, but I wish to remind the board members that there's a amendment being installed at Station 41, and that new lighting system has been approved by the county. Moving on, do I have a motion on the consent calendar? And
We
directing
have
the
one more
committee?
hand raised for public comment. Carl.
All right. Please.
Hi, I just was gonna say that I really am happy that you guys are interviewing candidates. I hope you'll consider replacing Ginny with another female, since the rest of you are all guys, but I understand you got to take the most qualified person, and that's it. I wanted to say I didn't know she was leaving, so I'm sorry I didn't get to say goodbye.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you, bye.
Moving on, do I have a motion on the consent calendar? And Director McKinney is going to recuse himself from the consent calendar. Do I have a motion?
So moved, JB.
Do I second?
Seconded.
Moving seconded. Roll call, please, Gene.
Director Stockman,
Yes.
Director, Vice President Cockrell,
Yes.
and President Burke.
Yes.
Passes 301 by roll call.
Moving on to continuing business, update on the vegetation management action plan. Director Stockman.
Yes, I'm going to try to keep this one brief tonight because I know we have a lot on our schedule, but it's very much ongoing. Very much continue to work with Chief Cox. Chief Cox sent me some notes of not just what conversations I've been involved in Zoom workshops. So it's a combination of the two. So I'm just going to read off this list real quick that with Jonathan and I have put together. Engine crews are actively conducting SRA and LRA defensible space inspections within the district boundaries. Currently, they have completed over 120, already beyond our contracted numbers. Chief Cox and Chief Sampson have given tours to local elected and state elected staffers at the CZU Lightning Complex and discussed larger wildfire prevention and mitigation efforts. Chief Cox and Chief Sampson continue to participate in the county-led fuel reduction task force and explore ways to reduce the fire risk throughout the county. Additional alert wildlife cameras have come online in San Mateo County, including Higgins Canyon within the district and on Tanitas Canyon. Maybe later, Chief Cosgrave or Chief Larkin could speak to those two new cameras. Working with Alert Wildfire to attempt to get a camera located at the Pillar Point Harbor for views back towards El Granada. That's been an ongoing effort, and that continues to move forward. Fire prevention staff are conducting a detailed lot-by-lot analysis of underdeveloped lots within the district to expand the weed abatement program for our following year, next year. And then finally, fire prevention staff are completing this year's weed abatement program. And that's what I have for the update.
Steve, thank you. That's a critical, important project, and I'm glad you're working so diligently on it yourself and the chief. Great. Moving on to item B, to continuing business, approve a letter of support for San Mateo County Board of Supervisor fuel reduction efforts in accordance with District Vegetation Management Action Plan. And Steve, your name is on this again, and I'd call attention that the suggested letter to the Board of Supervisors is in our packet. Do you have any comments on this, Steve?
Would you like me to read the letter?
I don't think it's necessary, but it just really is a letter of support for all the county's fuel reduction efforts, is it not?
Yes, and it was part of the overall strategy of what things needed to take place as we move forward to try to address this issue. And this was one on our list that that Chief Cox felt he could that we prioritize as a higher level of importance in the process to get that letter out to encourage the county and us as partners to work towards that goal.
Yeah, it is, as you noted, Steve, it is part of our action plan on vegetation management. It's very appropriate, very direct, and just ask for that we support their efforts in the fuel reduction efforts. Do I have a motion to support submit the letter to the county?
So moved.
A second?
Seconded.
Roll call, moved and seconded. Roll call, please, Gene.
Director Stockman,
Yes.
Director McKimmy,
Yes.
Vice President Cockrell,
Yes.
President Burke,
Yes,
passes 4-0 by roll call.
thank you. Moving on to item C, interview of applicants to fill vacancy on the board created by Director McShane's resignation. And Jean Sabari, would you take us through this and handle this part of the meeting, please?
Yes, I would. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. This is the time set aside by the board to interview, and if the board chooses to do so, tonight appoint one individual to fill the vacancy created by Director McShane's resignation from the board. The person chosen must reside within the district, be a registered voter, and once appointed, will serve out the remainder of Director McShane's term, which expires on November 22nd. This process is one that is undertaken pursuant to 1780 of the Government Code. And we noticed the vacancy and invited applicants, and 6 individuals have expressed an interest in filling this position. So there will be 6 interviews this evening. As I indicated when I began my remarks, the board has the option of appointing this evening or continuing the matter and holding another meeting sometime on or before June 14th, because that is the last day allowed by law at which an appointment can be made, or the district board could determine that it wishes to call for a special election instead. If the board chooses to do neither of those things, then the county would have an opportunity to consider candidates and make an appointment to the board. So as we begin this evening, the board president has asked that I ask each of the applicants to make a brief statement as to why you'd like to serve on the board. They have received the written material that you provided to them, and they will have some questions for you. So with that, I'll ask if there are any questions from the board, and if not, then I will just call one by one the names of the applicants. And when your name is called, if you'd unmute yourself, make your brief statement, and then the board will have questions for you. So are there any questions from the board? I'm seeing heads saying no. So we'll then begin the interview process, and we will begin in no particular order with Cynthia Sherrill. And I hope I'm pronouncing your names correctly. If I'm not, I apologize.
May I interrupt just for a moment? When we say brief statements, we don't mean to cut off any of the applicants. If you have anything to say, as the Jean has mentioned, we have your information you sent, but feel free to discuss whatever you think is relevant in your comments. Now, Cynthia, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Cynthia Sherrill, and I'm the program coordinator for Coastside CERT. Thank you for this opportunity to interview for the CFPD board vacancy. The last time I came before you, in the context of being decided upon, it was May 2nd, 2019, when the board graciously granted unanimous consent to Coastside CERT sponsorship. I believe my first words to you at the time were, "I come in peace." As I do again today, having contributed 4,000 hours of volunteer service since that time to support the mission and vision of the Coastside Fire Protection District in the public education space. I come with no other agenda than a heart of service and a complete dedication to the advancement of progressive fire services on the Coastside. In the past 2.5 years, I've been working hard at the forefront of raising the profile of the Coastside Fire Protection District in multiple positive ways by helping to recruit and train 198 new CERTs, tripling the local CERT capacity, who train at F40 and then return to support safety networks we are establishing at the grassroots level across 32 neighborhoods. We've scaled our leadership team from 2 to 12. During COVID, we logged more than 10,000 hours of volunteer service. We've grown from 300 when you first sponsored us to more than 1,800 residents today. This means we can get CFPD messages right into email boxes.
Hey, Peter, I'm in a fire board meeting right now. Can I call you?
In under 5 minutes when necessary. I continue to be a leader in building goodwill and respect for the board, working with the leadership of every emergency response agency on the Coastside. During COVID, I assisted Chief Cosgrave with writing more than 20 newsletters and safety messages. During the CZU fires, I was on the first 12-hour shift to back up La Honda Fire Station 57 with ham radio and evacuation assistance. When the roads closed, I helped stand up the DOC at F40 to put out a call for 50 volunteers. 200 showed up. We served as a ham radio message relay station and evacuation information resource for 4 days until the immediate local fire threat had calmed. I also served on the CZU burn scar debris flow education and evacuation initiatives. Financial management is a key accomplishment for the Coastside Fire Protection District. We've successfully managed $231,000 in grants with integrity and transparency. And the Coastside Fire Protection District got all of its money back. What do you know? I also want to thank Chief Larkin for, in the first minutes of sponsorship, saying, please go get your 501c3. And that's resulted in $25,000 of private community funded donations to support the operating costs for Coastside CERT. So thank you, sir. That was a great idea. So we have built ourselves from 0 to 25,000 with almost 200 donations. I'm collaborative, I'm a consensus builder and a team player. I'm always interested in researching optimal solutions and asking questions that move the discussion forward. I'm fair, inclusive, somewhat fearless, hardworking, and willing to serve on the committees, on whatever committee the board feels I can best be of service. I think the most important value in a volunteer organization is that you have to play well with others. My background is that I'm from design thinking at the University of Pennsylvania. I have 30 years of experience in strategic planning, including visioning, process facilitation, organizational change management, advancement strategies, implementation, project management, master planning, and architectural programming. I was a partner at the largest architectural firm in the world, Gensler, which is based here in San Francisco. I have experience in managing 35 million, square foot of planning for commercial design and construction. And it would be a privilege to be able to serve on this board, which I've been completely dedicated to for the last 2.5 years. And I believe that I've served on 5 boards before, and I have the policy, the performance oversight, and the financial experience to be an asset to the district board. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Jean, the next applicant.
I wanted to ask if there are any questions that the board would like to pose to this applicant. President Burke?
No.
Okay. The next applicant is Jimmy Williams, please.
Good evening. I'm Jim Williams. Thank you for the opportunity to apply for this position. I'm all about community service. I'd like to explain. Citizens of Coastside, I believe, are unwilling to pay more in taxes for an optimum level of first responders. Otherwise, there would be a Half Moon Bay Fire Department with more than the 9 to 10 firefighters that we have, and a battalion chief, and a police department with more than 6 deputies and a sergeant that we have now, not to mention a full-time fire board. That gap needs to be filled by a motivated, well-trained, and exercised community members. When I retired in 2007 from my engineering consulting firm, I became aware of and uneasy about how ready the Coastside was for emergencies and disasters. I knew that I could not protect my family alone. I had to have neighbors and a community to help me. In 2012, I organized in Frenchman's Creek a disaster planning group of just 13 families. The first product of that group was Frenchman's Creek Neighborhood Watch. Deputies from the Sheriff's Office, Sean Chase, Yock, and Mark Melville, recommended that I volunteer with the county. I still do, 20 hours a week. I learned about the Community Emergency Response Team National Program, and I sought training from Chief Cosgrave. I was graduated in 2013 as a CERT member. One of my classmates was Captain Nick Gattuso from County Office of Emergency Services, who recruited me to be part of his organization, the Coastside Emergency Corps, in response to the 2007 grand jury report that was very critical of the response preparedness on the Coastside. I later served on the CEC board at the urging of Battalion Chief DeLay. Making myself more able and trained, including in 2014 being licensed as a ham radio operator, technician grade. My first CERT activation in 2015 by Chief DeLay in La Honda was to rescue property from 3 homes that were sliding down a steep hillside in a landslide. In 2016, I was asked to represent certain county volunteers in the Community Emergency Action Program, KEEP. 2017, I was certified by Red Cross in adult and pediatric first aid, CPR, AED, and shelter operations. I received a general class ham license. 2018, I went to EMS medical school. I graduated as an EMT, and the National Outdoor Leadership School and graduated as a wilderness EMT. In 2019, I became an emergency medical first responder in La Honda for Chief DeLay. That same year, I was asked by the CEC board and Director Stockman to take over the CERT coordinator role for Branch 1 and 2. I agreed to do that until we found someone to replace me. This year also saw the formation of the Frenchman's Creek Prepared, which still leads the neighborhoods in organization for disasters. I co-wrote the neighborhood communication plan and walkie-talkie protocols for the 32 neighborhoods on the coast. I was proud to be nominated by Chief Cosgrave to attend the Cal OES CERT management and instructor classes in Sacramento, and nominated by Mayor Deborah Penrose to attend the National Emergency Management Institute for the federal CERT program in Emmitsburg, Maryland. That year, we began teaching emergency preparedness based upon the Dr. Arthur Bradley and FEMA curriculum of the 5 basics for surviving disaster: water, shelter, food, security and safety, and communications. Incidentally, my webinar on walkie-talkie communications with Chief Cosgrave has been viewed more than 5,000 times as part of CERT training. In conclusion, I will assume that each one of you are prepared in your households and your neighborhoods for emergencies or disasters because of your service here, and you're smarter than most. But since 2012, I've surveyed more than 140 neighbors and community members about what they will do in a major emergency. Their responses break into 5 categories or attitudes that may be surprising. Would you like to hear them?
Go ahead.
First
Go ahead.
response is nothing bad can ever happen, and if it does, the government will take care of me. Now, we call that the Hurricane Katrina response. The second response is bad things happen, but always to somebody else and somewhere else. Now, we call that the Paradise response. The third response is bad things happen, I need to get ready. The fourth response is I'm ready. I have for my family and my community water, shelter, food, security, and communications. And the last and saddest response is I'll just die. Now, apathy and denial, normalcy bias, those are our biggest barriers. Community service means to me helping my neighbors, even during disasters, to thrive, helping them to be aware, to prepare and plan. I'm doing that. Serving in this interim on the fire board will add to that service. And I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Jim.
Next candidate is Karen Ellenson.
Hello. Excuse me. I come to you rather humbly because you have an amazing slate of candidates for this position. I've been serving on a nonprofit board of directors for 5 years and started as secretary, did that for over 2 years. And now for the past 2.5 years, I've been serving as one of 3 executive directors for the nonprofit organization, responsible for everything operational having to do with that organization. Why am I interested in this? I'm passionate about the Coastside. I'm passionate about our communities and keeping them safe. I hugely admire the fire board and our fire professionals and everything that they do and sacrifice to keep their communities safe. And I'd like to do anything I possibly can to support that mission. I admire the crucial work that these people are providing to the Coastside, and I would welcome the opportunity to work with the board and the county to ensure the safety of our fire professionals and the community at large. I also enjoy the challenge of problem solving in a board environment and governance as part of a board, and I would welcome that opportunity of serving the larger purpose of the Coastside. I also feel that being a board member, the role is really to respond nimbly to evolving needs while maintaining fidelity to the core mission and goals of the district. And sometimes that's a careful juggling act. But I feel that we must serve our core mission and constituencies and do them proud and ensure that they're funded and that motions are carried that support their mission. My background is I'm a long-term educational publisher. I've worked for McGraw-Hill, Pearson Education, Elsevier as a VP and executive director in roles having to do with basically full P&L management of business units, managing the finances, hiring, product decisions, all the contract negotiation, partner management, and then quite a bit of cross-functional group management as well, where you don't necessarily have any management role with these groups of people, but you need to get them on board and get them bought into a unified group project and purpose. I've also had quite a bit of experience with large proposal development, working with clients like Apple, Amazon, Thomson Reuters, Deloitte, as well as many nonprofit entities. In terms of my local work, I too am a CERT member, much newer than the two who just spoke. I attend Fire Safe Council meetings. I'm a past volunteer wilderness leader with the Sierra Club, and I'm a 21-year homeowner in El Granada. And like Jim just said, I've become progressively more aware of just the various challenges that the Coastside faces. And yes, how many neighbors just don't want to recognize that they are part of the solution in keeping us all safe. I've banded together with groups of my neighbors. We've shared what we've put together for our go bags and our emergency supplies. We're working together as a team in addition to what we're doing with CERT. And I think the more we can do that as Coastside residents, the more prepared we're going to be, because let's face it, we are off on our own in this area. There's a beautiful area that we live in. So I am just humbly grateful for your consideration in the midst of this highly qualified slate of candidates. I would welcome the opportunity to serve the board. I do have experience with serving as secretary for the board, and would welcome expanding that experience and contributing to, frankly, a much more rewarding and important role for the Coastside, and one that I believe in fully. It would be a privilege, and I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
The next applicant is Michael Akana.
Oh, thank you so much. Wow, I believe we're fortunate here on the coast to be served by this Fire Protection District Board, and to have your oversight. And I would be honored to serve among you, but I'm also honored to just be considered amongst this slate of candidates, some of whom I know personally, and I know would be excellent candidates and are excellent candidates for the position. My experience includes working for a variety of public service and nonprofit agencies. I've served in various roles as employee, consultant, volunteer. I've served as board member, president, secretary, treasurer, and trustee of organizations. And I've worked with various city and county departments on contracts, systems development, focus groups, training. Past professional experience includes administration, organizational process, contracts, systems, and finance. And professionally, I currently work as an independent travel agent, although there hasn't been much business in the last year. My work with service agencies is now primarily as a volunteer in local emergency and disaster preparation and response. I'm active with the Red Cross and am currently with the Disaster Cycle Services, and will be working in external affairs, and most particularly government external affairs. And the Coastside Emergency Corps as CEC president. I serve on the Coastside Emergency Action Program, KEEP, as a member representing the CEC. And I'm working with the County Formation Committee for the Medical Reserve Corps. I'm also trained in the Community Emergency Response Team, CERT, and am active in my neighborhood. I, again, am pleased that there's such a good slate of candidates. So I think it would be difficult for you to go wrong in what decision you make, and only you can decide, how to best, put together the team that you want to go forward with. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael.
Your next applicant is Roy Salume.
Hello. First of all, I've known Ginny McShane for a number of years, and I hope she's doing well. One of the other hats, I've been on the school board. I've served on the civil grand jury, but one of the other hats that I've worn over the years is as an election inspector and judge and I've overseen over 24 elections for the county over 20 years. And I am delighted that we have a number of high quality candidates for this post. It makes me feel good about the future of our democracy. So that aside, let me tell you a little bit about myself and why I want the job. My background is in engineering. I have several engineering degrees. I am also passionate about public service. I've done a lot of it over the years in my spare time. It's not always easy. It's always a sacrifice, but I consider it a duty of citizenship. Let me tell you a little bit. I wrote a statement, but let me read a little bit from it. I submitted this to the board earlier. Why do I wish to serve on the board? I understand that the threat of fire on the coast side is real, and I have been speaking about the danger we face for years. We have unmanaged vegetation and eucalyptus all over the coast side. The maps that detail our fire risk should move us from awareness to action. As we've seen in other communities impacted by fire in the last several years, I believe it is not only a matter of if, but of when a catastrophic fire will happen here. We must maintain a robust fire response infrastructure. Yet a well-funded, trained, and equipped team is only part of what is required. A long-term proactive response to reducing our risks is necessary as well. There's always more that can be done, and we cannot become complacent. At the same time, our fire protection district functions in a multi-jurisdictional environment. As such, it can be difficult to align public lip service with sustained constructive action. Because of my previous public service, I am very familiar with this kind of problem. I have been successful working with this kind of challenge, building good relationships, and in fostering public support for initiatives when necessary. If you select me, I promise you one thing: I shall do a heck of a lot of listening and learning. And there's one other thing. I've watched your meetings, and I am pleased that your meetings seem to be very efficient and quick and to the point. The last meeting in April was, I think, 1 hour and 1 minute. I was deeply impressed by that. Some of the other meetings that I regularly attend on the coast side go for hours and hours and hours. So I commend you for your efficiency. You also have some serious challenges. The $40 million in CalPERS liability is a deep concern. I think that this is something that cannot be kicked down. This is not a can that can be kicked down the road. We're going to have to deal with this at some time. And it appears, based on the numbers that I've seen, that the liability is increasing over time. So this has to be dealt with, and it has to be dealt with in a fairly direct manner. And it's going to be difficult. I don't know if it's passing a bond. I don't know if there's other options that are available to the district, to this particular special district. But that is of deep concern. And I think that should concern everyone, because this is going to affect the ability of us to respond to fire in a proactive way, and also to reduce the risk, to mitigate the risk over time. So that's all I have to say, and I'm open to questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Roy.
Your next and final applicant is Gopi Mattel.
I don't see that name here unless they're under another name. As far as participants.
Not on the screen. Chief.
Right. No participant by that name is on there, and there's no one in the waiting room.
Well, if they're not here, then we'll have to, we do have a letter from Gopi that is in our packet that has some very brief information about he and his background. Moving on, I'm sure I speak for all the board in thanking the applicants for taking the time. You all have just great backgrounds and great experience, and I'm sure would make a fine board member. The difficulty we have, of course, is selecting a board member in this situation. And I guess, Jean Sabri, without going further, it's time for, first of all, to ask any of the board members if they have any questions of any of the applicants. Any questions at all of any of the applicants? Steve?
I don't have a question, but I have a statement. And it goes along with what Roy shared is, normally as a board, thank you for your recognition of the efficiency of the board. We all take pride in that, and it seems to have served the district and the board well. And then also that I was probably the last appointment to the board, and there was one other candidate, and I've always said the best scenario is when we have 5 or 10 people to choose from, because I think that really speaks to the future health of the board and the district, that there's the concern and there's this kind of community participation and people stepping forward to serve. So I think we all in this role of stepping forward to serve is, I agree, a great sign for democracy and a great sign for this community. So I just want to commend all of you to just simply for that, for stepping forward to that. And that this is one position, but this board will continue to evolve. So there will be 4 other people that haven't been chosen, but I hope for all of you that haven't, that you'll continue to step forward when these openings come, because it's just moving it forward and all continue to serve, and it'll make us all a better community. So I just wanted to make that statement, and thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Any other, Bruce?
So I would like to know where, excuse me, Cynthia lives? You're muted.
You're muted, Cynthia.
Sorry, I live in Arleta Park. I am 2 minutes from Fire Station 40. In
Okay,
Half
thank you. Thank you, Cynthia. Jimmy?
Frenchman's great.
Oh, Frenchman Street, okay, cool. Give me a second. And Karen said she lives in El Granada. Michael?
On Correas and Alsace-Lorraine, next to Kelly.
Cool, very cool. And Roy?
The mighty El Granada.
The mighty El Granada. Cool. Thank you all so very much. And thank you all for submitting your applications and wanting to be on the board. It's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Any other board questions or comments? Okay, now here's why the board gets paid the big money. Do I have a nomination, recommendation, a motion to appoint a member to the Coastside Fire Protection Board?
Help me understand this, going to do the process. So
Excuse me?
help me understand how this process will go with us. We're not going to close session to discuss the candidates. We're just simply going to make a nomination and.
Yes, this needs to be done in open session,
Okay.
but I need a motion to move forward if you'd like, if any of the board member would like to do so. Do I have a motion?
I'd be happy to make a motion if allowed. Yeah, I'd like to move that Cynthia Sherrill be appointed to fill the remaining term of Ginny McShane.
a motion for Cynthia Sherrill to fill the board vacancy. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussions or questions?
So if we get two candidates, we're going to vote.
We need, Jean will clarify this, but we will vote on this candidate. And then we will see if there's another candidate put forward, I believe. And if so, we would vote on that candidate. Is that correct, Jean Savary?
I would suggest that you instead ask for all nominations up front, and then the directors can indicate which of the
Okay.
nominees they wish to vote for. So I think you
Okay.
should at this point call for any further nominations.
Okay, are there any further nominations?
Boy, this is a tough one because I think there are really some strong candidates here. You know, I know Cynthia personally. I know what she's given to the community in the district, and I've also worked with Michael, and I'd like to know more about Roy. So I just put that comment that's not. I don't know enough to nominate a second before Cynthia. So I'm not going to take that as a nomination. I'm just going to make that as a clarity that I think there's really strong candidates. I feel Cynthia might be the best candidate just because I know her work. But
I think we all echo your comments, Steve.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. Thank you, Steve.
Yeah.
I believe there's a motion on the floor.
Yes, there are no other nominations from the board. So we have a motion to appoint Cynthia Sherrill, and we have a second. And no other nominations. I'd ask for a roll call, please, Jean.
Director Stockman,
yes.
Director McKimmey,
Yes.
Vice President Cockrell,
Yes.
President Burke.
Yes.
Passes 4-0 by roll call.
This is redundant,
Welcome.
but I, again, would like to thank each and every candidate who has come forward. There's just great talent and great enthusiasm to serve the community, and thank you very much.
Congratulations,
for coming.
Cynthia. Yay.
Congratulations to
Yay.
Cynthia.
I am so honored. This was such an incredible group of people. Thank you. I will do my best to serve in the capacity that each of you would want me to, and my door, my phone, my Zoom is always open for whatever input you might have. So thank you so much. A complete honor.
Thanks and bye.
Thank you all
Congratulations.
for applying.
Cynthia, please don't go away. There is a small formality of an oath of office that needs to be taken care of. So I would ask Jean Savary, our attorney, if she would swear in Cynthia.
Yes, I will read the oath. I'll break it into pieces, and if you could just repeat the phrase I've just stated. So I, Cynthia Sherrill,
I, Cynthia Sherrill,
do solemnly swear that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States of America
the Constitution of the United States of America
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Congratulations, Director Sherrill.
Thank you very much.
Welcome, Cynthia.
Thank you very much.
All right.
What an honor. Thank you.
We will move on with our regular agenda. And Cynthia, I suspect you don't have a copy, even though you're a board member, you don't have a copy of our agenda this evening, but so please ask questions and direct any thoughts that you have and to anyone of the board or to staff. Moving on though, on our agenda, the next item is item, we need to first of all adopt a resolution on this, I believe, Jean Savary. So I make a motion to adopt resolution number 221-13 of the District Board of Coastside Fire Protection, appointing new board member Cynthia Sherrill to a member of the Coastside Fire Protection District Board. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please. Jean.
Director Stockman,
Yes.
Director McKimmy,
Yes.
Vice President Cockrell,
Yes.
and President Burke.
Yes.
Passes 4-0
For
by
the-
roll call. Welcome,
For
Cynthia.
the newer members listening in and participating in this meeting, it's probably a little confusing that we have two Jeans. One who is taking our very effective notes, and our attorney is Jean Savary. So hence the two Jeans. Moving on, item D.
I have a question, Jerry. Will Cynthia be voting on the remainder of our business?
Jean Savary, I assume she can.
She may participate in the meeting, but I would also encourage her not to feel uncomfortable and abstaining if, as she listens to the staff reports, she does not feel yet prepared to vote this evening.
Okay, good advice. Thank you. Moving on, item D, adopt a proclamation honoring Ginny McShane for her service to the Board of Directors. And that has my name after it. We on the board are well aware of the service that Ginny McShane has provided this board and the prior board over the past roughly 20 years. And I have in front of me as part of the packet a public document that is a proclamation of the board of the Coastside Fire Protection District honoring Ginny McShane for her service on the board of directors. And I would like to read this. I think this is very important for her lifetime, literally, of service to this board. Whereas Ginny McShane was born and raised in San Francisco, California, and whereas she has been a coastal resident since 1979, and whereas in 2001, Ginny was elected to the Point Montera Fire Protection District Board of Directors and served until her retirement on April 15, 2021. And whereas during her years in office, Director McShane was instrumental in the consolidation of the Point Montera Fire District with the Half Moon Bay Fire Protection District, leading to the creation of the Coastside Fire Protection District and the establishment of the district's contract with CAL FIRE. And wherefore, whereas Director McShane is a member of the Board of Directors for the Coastside Fire Protection District, served on the Finance Committee, the Budget Committee, and the Vegetation Management Committee. And whereas Director McShane, also a member of AARP, American Legion, American Heart Association, Phi Kappa, Phi Honor Society, and the AAUW. And whereas, in addition to a service to the community as a fire board member, Director McShane also had made time to perform charity work for the American Heart Association and work with children with learning disabilities. And whereas Director McShane is held in the highest regard by her colleagues on the Board of Directors, former board members, staff, and the community, all of whom wish to extend sincere appreciation for her outstanding performance of duty during her greatly valued 20-year tenure as a member of the Coastside Fire Board. Now, I therefore, Gary Burke, President of the Coastside Fire Protection District Board of Directors, on behalf of the Coastside Fire Protection District, do hereby honor Ginny McShane on her exemplary service and commitment to the Coastside Fire Protection District and offer sincere appreciation for her 20 years of service on the Board of Directors. Ginny, thank you 1,000 times for your great service to this community.
Thank you, Jen.
I'd
I
like
will
to-
make it.
I'd like to
Yes, I
see
think that's
it
what
shown
it is.
carried by acclamation. Can we
Excuse
show it
me?
as carried by acclamation, please?
I'm sorry, I did not hear the comment.
May we show it as carried by acclamation?
Oh, we can show it carried by acclamation if that's appropriate, and we shall, without objection. Thank you. This proclamation will be presented in the appropriate form to Ginny McShane at an appropriate time, and hopefully we can do it in person at some future meeting. Thank you all. Moving on, new business.
President Burke, real quick. Additionally, this, I don't know if you can see that with my virtual background. I'm gonna have to turn that off. Hold on a second. Virtual background. This plaque was made that we will present at the same time.
It's very nice.
Get in a reflection of the screen, but that we will present at the same time as your.
Chief Cosgrave, that's great. Thank you very much. We'll make certain that Ginny gets that. You bet.
All right.
Thank you very much. And now, moving on to new business, weed abatement. I see we have a new face in the on the screen. Chief Cox, can you handle this one, please?
Thank you. Can you hear me, everybody?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. And sorry for being late. I had a previous community meeting I had to be a part of. This weed abatement information in front of you is really the next phase in the weed abatement program. The first thing we need to do is actually hear if there's any public objection to the weed ordinance and the nuisance that.
I thereby will open a public hearing for any person wishing to comment on our weed abatement. Hearing none, I'll close the public meeting.
Thank you, President. What you're voting on here is really just authorization for the fire chief to undertake the removal of the weeds that have already been notified that we believe are a public nuisance. We have a contractor that you'll remember we completed the extension for the RFP for, and this really authorizes the removal of those seasonal weeds within the district.
This is pretty much boilerplate, Cynthia. That's we've had this on the agenda a number of times, and we do this once a year. But with that, do I have a motion to adopt resolution number 221-12?
So moved.
Second from Steve Stockman. Any further comments or questions? Roll call, please, Jean.
Director Stockman,
Yes.
Director McKimmey,
Yes.
Vice President Cockrell,
Yes.
and President Burke.
Yes.
Do you want to check with Cynthia?
Cynthia, would you like to vote?
Cynthia Sherrill.
Yes.
Okay.
You want to vote? Is that a yes?
Yes, on weed abatement, yes.
Okay, thank you. 5-0 by
Very
roll
good.
call.
Very good. Moving on, then it passes. Moving on to item B, review and approve recommendations to award contract for 2 Type 1 fire engines to Golden State Apparatus Incorporated in amount not to exceed $1,673,645.34. Chief Cox.
Thank you, President Burke. This is an item I know we've been speaking about for probably about half a year now, and I'm happy that we can bring it before the board before the end of the fiscal year with an even stronger recommendation than what we had previously discussed. This is really a report talking about our recommendation to replace both engine 40 and engine 41, which are the highest mile engines on the district, and put those 2 into reserve status and surplus the 2 reserve rigs. As you'll remember, based on the mobile equipment replacement plan that the board adopted last year, we had identified what is currently engine 140 as being the engine to be replaced this year because it's met its 15-year frontline status and 5-year reserve life status. We believe, after looking at the financials for the year, where we sit with the budget, that we have an opportunity right now to actually double the order with the savings and revenue we've had this year, and purchase 2 identical Type 1s that will be almost identical to the current Pierce Quantum Type 1s that we're running within the district. A couple of reasons for this recommendation. Firstly is just the cost. What we're seeing right now from Pierce is an increased production cost of anywhere between 2 to 10% for an annual increase in the cost of what an engine will kind of cost if we don't buy it this year and we wait another year. We're also looking at the fact that we have a maintenance commitment to the older engines, the old engine 140 and 144. And we believe if we take the combination of those two savings, it is in the financial interest of the district to have two reserve engines that need less maintenance and are an identical platform for our fire apparatus engineers. So with the replacement of these two engines, all 5 of the Type 1 district engines will be identical, which means pump familiarization, apparatus operations, driving skills, code 3 warning lights will all be the same. An operator can literally get out of one and get in the other. That also means that we have less need to carry spare parts for additional types of apparatus. We can swap out fairly quickly with what we have on hand. With that, I will also say with this, the variability of pricing right now for fire apparatus due to the price of steel and the supply chain issues that are going on kind of globally, maybe also favor making a dual purchase right now. With that, we get a reduced cost for a multi-purchase order through Pierce. And if we do pay up front, which we have the ability to in our current financial situation this year, we get an additional savings as well. So all of those factors combined, we believe that the design that the apparatus committee has put forward is a appropriate design for the district. These engines, when they were new, were the engines I was working on in the district, and I'm a strong proponent of the reputation that both the apparatus have with the firefighters and the way that they've performed. So I hope that the board can strongly consider this recommendation to make it a 2-engine purchase for the engine replacements. Happy to answer any questions.
Before I ask for a motion, the questions from the board, comments?
Well, that was going to be one of my questions to Chief Cox, was the reputation of the rigs with the current line staff. And so I think you answered that. There's a reputation there. That's always my first question. And then the additional question was what the makeup of the committee is that puts the specs and determines this. Is it across through staffing?
Yeah, that's a great question, Director Stockman. So the apparatus committee is a combination of engineers, captains, and battalion chiefs from both Coastside Fire District and San Mateo County Fire. They are led, it's a program that Chief Cosgrave leads. We basically give them the marching orders for the year to look at apparatus replacement. And they spend a lot of time testing, looking, geeking out, looking at details, going and visiting other departments. I will say that because of the reputation that we've had and the experience we've had with Pierce, we've actually started to replace the county fire fleet with Pierce as well. And we're seeing just the stability of the platform that we've experienced over the last 10 years with the Coastside District kind of prove the value of what they are.
Oh, thank you. I commend you for having a broad mix of people in those committee processes. I know from my personal career experiences, I think that apparatus is always better that way. A lot of agencies only use administrative input to make those decisions, and I think it leaves the end user out. So I commend you for that. So thank you.
We definitely. The committee is, they have robust conversations is the best way I can put it about what is the best apparatus.
That's good.
Let me just interject for the public's interest. This motion and this subject is accompanied by a 1,000-page document that documents all the particulars of the cost and the specifications. If anybody has trouble sleeping, they would certainly enjoy this document. More questions? Bruce?
Yeah, Chief, are we going to strip the engines to be sold and then re-equip the new engines with the same equipment? You know, extrication cools, hose, nozzles, etc.?
Thanks, Director McKinney. That's a really, really good question. Sorry for leaving that out. Our plan is to fully outfit one of these 2 new engines so that we have a turnkey engine ready to go in reserve, meaning if engine 40 goes out on a strike team, they can hop in the reserve and it's ready to go. The second type 1, we plan to leave dry, which means no equipment on it, so that if an engine goes into the shop, they can do a swap over from one engine to the other. We think that that approach gets us the best of both worlds.
So you're going to buy new equipment for one new engine?
Correct.
Is that in the budget? Is that included in this $1,673,000?
No, that will be in next year's equipment budget, and that will be about, delivery time is going to be probably about 12 months before we get them. So it'll be next fiscal year that we'll budget in that amount. Right now, we just are looking at probably about 150,000 for equipment for one engine for next year.
And why can't we use the same equipment?
So we could, but we'd have 2 dry engines then, essentially.
That we're going to part out. So you have a reserve that we're selling and a front
Right.
line. We're
Yep.
taking the front line and make it reserve.
Yep.
So can't we take the engine we're going to sell and
It's
put
not,
that
yeah, good question.
scuffle equipment?
It's not fully outfitted, so it doesn't have all of what is required for the Type 1 frontline. We will use as much as we can. Ladders is a good example. We'll reuse the ladders. We'll reuse the hose if it's still within its lifespan. So we
Right.
reuse as much as possible, but there are quite a few pieces like the extrication equipment that we don't have.
Further questions, Steve?
Does this, yes, will there be a upgrade of the volunteers apparatus? Is any of this surplus part of that? Is it what we're taking off better than what the volunteers have? Is that part of the plan?
Yeah, so the engine 140, which will be what is currently one of the frontline engines, will be what the volunteers respond in once the new apparatus is in place. So they will have an apparatus that is fully outfitted so that they can go to the station and pick that up. That would be that same apparatus.
Thank you.
So just as I as I understand it, the current engine 40 will become engine 140.
Correct.
And engine 140 will leave.
That's right.
Just a comment, I noticed we have a Pierce truck. Now we're going to have 5 Pierce engines. Based on my previous career, I can't speak highly enough for commonality.
Okay. Let me just make a couple of quick comments. The 2 engines that, and Chief, you might have mentioned this, that are in the process of being replaced are 19 years old, right?
Correct.
Do that. As the chief outlined, as detailed in this very long report we have here, the savings of making this decision and buying the both of them engines together, the savings is some $160,000. There's a couple of financial aspects that would lead me to support this as well. Let me just touch upon them. It appears we're now 10 months through the year, and it appears that we're going to have a sizable fund balance at the end of the year. And if you think about it, let's just say for a moment, for the sake of an example, let's say it's $2 million, and it may very well be in that area, I would suspect. We would have an opportunity with that money if we had it. We could put it in LAIF, as a reserve, or the county, and we could probably earn 1% on that money. And if we were to do that with the current rate of inflation versus that rate of return, we're losing money. I mean, it's just really not a good investment at all to do that. The alternative, as the chief has outlined, is to buy the 2 engines and save the $160,000 and have an up-to-date fleet in front of us. So it makes financial sense as well as service and mechanical sense to me. With that, any further questions or comments? Do I have a motion?
I move we award the contract for 2 Pierce manufacturing quantum 1500 GPM type 1 fire engine bumpers to Golden State Fire Apparatus Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $1,673,645.34.
Do we have a second?
Seconded.
A second. Any further discussions or comments?
Was second by Stockman?
Yes. Yes. Nothing else? Roll call, please. Gene.
Director Stockman,
Yes.
Director McKimmy,
Yes.
Vice President Cockrell,
Yes.
Cheryl, I'm sorry, Cynthia Cheryl.
Abstain. It's a great, it sounds fabulous, but without doing research in advance, I don't know if it would be responsible for me to vote.
Very good.
President Burke
Yes.
passes 4-0-1 by roll call.
Very good. Thank you. Great. Moving on to Board of Directors and Chiefs report. First is the Finance Committee, myself and JB Cockrell. I just make a couple of quick comments. The financial spreadsheet, which is publicly available for the 10 months of the fiscal year, is in your packet. And as a quick summary, there is nothing unusual. We are on schedule, both revenue and expenses, and in solid financial shape for this fiscal year. The second point I would quickly mention is that Director Cockrell and Chief Cox and I had not one, but two Zoom meetings this past Monday having to do with how we might consider addressing the unfunded liability that the district has with CalPERS. And both CalPERS and the PAS organization both have programs available where you can pre-fund monies, and at least their description is and hope is that we would get more return on our investment than leaving it either with LAIF and or San Mateo County. I think, at least I believe that from Chief Cox and JB, and he'll speak up for his own, but I think that in the fall, after we decide or perhaps make more decisions relative to Station 44, that we might reconsider one of these two alternatives as opposed to just earning 1%. JB, did you have any comments on those Zoom?
Oh, that's my feeling exactly. I thought you put it very well.
It was very interesting. At least we have some flexibility to consider some alternatives that up until a year ago, we had no alternative to do it. Okay. The only financial item in the course of the presentation from PAS, the portion of PAS that we currently have invested with, which is being used to fund the healthcare for our old previous employees, the comment was made that we might want to consider changing the risk tolerance that we currently have. If you may remember, PAS gives us 5 different categories to choose from as to which degree of risk we might have. And I think the one we're in is called aggressive balance or something like that. It's on the higher end. We're taking more risk. Our percentage of equities is more than our percentage of fixed income bonds. And a suggestion was made that we might want to consider changing that in what a lot of people consider perhaps a more volatile financial situation in the US, along with more possible inflation. I think the suggestion was made, and I think it's a valid suggestion. And I would suggest, and we will put that item back on the agenda for further discussion as to what it means and what we might do. But I think it was a very helpful suggestion on the part of the PAS staff. The only other financial comment that I would make, that in our packet, speaking of PAS, we enjoyed another very solid month, and that is for the month ending 4/30. The gain was $143,000 for the month, and our balance is $4,500,000. We are overfunded in that particular category. Any questions on the financials? Hearing none, moving on. Volunteer Committee, Director Cockrell.
Yeah, the volunteers did not have a meeting this month. However, I did speak with the treasurer, and he gave me an update on their finances. By the way, this particular volunteer, I will tell the group, he attended the Truck Academy, which was held for the professional firefighters. And I guess he's of such a skill level that they felt he could hold his own. And my understanding is that he did. So one of our volunteers went to the regular professional Truck Academy, which is speaks highly of the quality of some of the volunteers we have. Anyhow, getting back to the financial condition of the volunteers of their 501c3, in the checking account, they've got about $40,500. Savings accounts $173,000 for a total balance of $213,655. So that's what they've got with a few bills outstanding, but no earth-shaking ones. Some Costco annual renewal, because they try to save money by buying at Costco and a few things like that. That's the extent of my report.
Thank you. Any questions? Moving on, Land and Structures Committee report. Director Cockrell, Director McKimmey.
No report from me.
No report, yeah.
I just make a quick comment that I had spoken to Chief Cox that asking if he would engage with the Land and Structures Committee and really outline some kind of action plan that we might consider for Station 44. I would just ask, I don't think we should let it just sit there, that one way or another we should make some plans and take some action on that thing. So I anticipate that Chief Cox will be talking to both of you and trying to get together and get something done on that item. Moving on, Vegetation Management Report, Director Stockman, I guess we've had partially, but anything else, Steve?
No, I just, I attended the fire scope, county fire safe Zoom class, or not class, Zoom presentation. Chief Cox gave an excellent presentation at that meeting on Zone Haven, some of which we've heard before as a board, but just how, along with the developer of that, and that, as we known from past discussion, very much important on lives, definitely a strong effect on the ability to be able to evacuate our community with a plan and within zones and in a very live and current conditions. So I just commend Chief Cox, gave a wonderful presentation on that. So that's all I had to add for vegetation.
Very good. Special Districts Association has my name in it, no report. JPA liaison report. I attended, participated in a Zoom meeting on the JPA board, a very lengthy meeting, I might add. And they had a change in leadership, and I believe it's Maria Chong from Hillsborough, and I don't really know what her position is in Hillsborough, has been elected chair, and Rico Medina from San Bruno has been elected vice chair of the JPA. They, among other things, a new budget for the year was adopted by the JPA. Most of the meeting was taken up with a very detailed discussion on technology, which went completely over my head. But it is the bottom line is that there is a need to change the technology of dispatching within the district, and the JPA is taking the lead in deciding the types of technology and so forth that will be involved in that. And also that they noted that the technology would result in a sizable increase in cost of dispatching. And maybe Chief Cox, you might add to that item, or anybody else that has any additional information to it. The other interesting thing, just as a kind of a quick call, there was the reimbursements that we receive through the JPA is based on the number of engines, as I recall, that each one of the various groups has. And one of the members of the JPA raised the point that they weren't sure that that was the ultimate fair way of doing it for whatever reasons, I'm not sure, and suggested that they include ladder trucks in determining the distribution of funds in the program. That it was just a discussion point, but again, I'm not familiar with what the history of that item is. Anything on that, either of Chief Cox, Larkin, or Cosgrave has had any of that? If not, I'm moving on.
Yes, so I sit on the management committee for the ALS JPA. So those FRUs that you're talking about, those are the first responder units that each agency is allocated a specific amount of money for each of those units. And there has been long-term discussions about adding truck companies into that mix. And there's just not enough revenue there without dropping the FRUs down considerably to add truck companies to that. So most agencies that run an ALS truck company are doing that at no additional cost to the system. And this is a system-wide approach for this ALS program. So there is a reduction this year just due to budgetary, due to those reasons for the technology and the infrastructure upgrades for the radio infrastructure. They did reduce the FRUs by 10,000 per unit this year, which 3 years ago they had increased them by 10,000. So we're just dropping back to the normal amount that we would receive 3 years ago. So hopefully that gives a little bit more of an explanation of the cost, and how that goes.
Thank you very much. FDAC report, no report. Emergency preparedness, Director Stockman.
Yes, as normally each month, I'll keep this brief. The key meeting for this month was a presentation from Harrison Steins, which is part of our county county health department. I've shared in past meetings, so nothing more current, but he gave his of the Medical Reserve Corps. So he discussed his involvement in the county support of that Medical Reserve Corps and its movement forward, which I've shared in past meetings. So I won't go in greater detail, but it was good to hear from Harrison and his role, and also other people in that meeting, of how essential that Harrison Stein within that county position supports and has helped lead that forward, which again has a final result of making our Coastside more prepared and for a disaster. There was within KEEP, there's a great representation of many groups on the Coastside, volunteer as well as local government. And so we've tried to give each of those groups a greater time to speak of what they do and how they're built. This last month was from Kerry Smith from the Harbor District. He explained kind of the politics, the structure of the Harbor District, the amount of people that serve on that as harbor masters, and they have a great number. They serve in 24-hour shifts, 10-hour shifts of those. 2 of them are deputies, so they're kind of well-rounded. I think we've all seen as community members that those that are serving in those harbor master positions are, really do have a great influence on the Coastside in the waters as well as within the harbor. So it was great. It was great to hear from Kerry. Looking for my other points that came out, they talked about the alert wildlife cameras that we already covered, those additionals, those 2 additions. We heard from CERT 3 and 4 from the South County that they continue to add to their numbers, as much as Cynthia shared earlier. They continue to grow and strengthen. And that's all I have for that. There was discussion from OES about VOADs. There was discussion within the KEEP group of becoming a VOAD. There's a current committee. So volunteer organizations in disasters. There was some question within the group and the community, whether that serves us or it's a benefit. Within that time, Chief Cosgrave had sent me a link to the current, they have, I think they meet quarterly, Northern California VOAD group. It was helpful to sit in and listen to that. It changed my view, not changed my view, but reinforced my view how important it is to be a VOAD, because it gives you legitimacy to those volunteer organizations within the actual disaster response, that being part of that kind of legitimizes you as a community, and also at the end helps with being recognized for funding after the disaster. So I'll continue to update you and inform you a little bit more of that in a future meeting, but that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Attorney's report.
Nothing, thank you.
Fire chief's report.
All right,
Thoughts?
just a few things. Start off with COVID. We're still continuing to take precautions. COVID precautions remain in place for our organization. We continue to receive the PPE that we have gotten as a part of that grant from all the fire agencies countywide. And currently no cases within the district, and the number of responses for COVID-related type incidents continues to go down. Administrative side, the new staff service analyst, Christopher Spradley, hopefully you've had a chance to stop by and meet him. He's fully operational and is now working closely with the fire prevention staff on workflows and business processes, and just reducing all of their barriers administratively so that they can focus on their plan reviews and inspections. Our AGPA, Michelle, she's still working remotely, and we'll look to get her back in the office after all the COVID restrictions are lifted. Management side, myself and Rich Sampson, as Director Stockman mentioned, have been meeting regarding the vegetation and fuels management. We're working with and exploring potential ways to think about the tree ordinance and what the barriers to success are for people to be successful in clearing vegetation. We're also back in person with our countywide fire chiefs meetings, where all the fire chiefs get together from all the agencies across the county. Those are back in person. Chief Larkin and I were at that one in Menlo Park last month, and we'll be back in Foster City this month. For personnel, we conducted battalion chief interviews for the Schedule A, or the local government relief position. That's the one that's split funded between the district and the county fire department. We have not made an offer on that position yet. As far as outreach goes, our fire prevention staff is working on looking at reinventing the wildfire prevention flyer and what that looks like as far as getting information out to the public. As you'll remember, that is on our master or action plan for vegetation management. So we're starting to think about what that looks like for the community. Additionally, as far as operations goes, average call volume, no significant calls to note. There was another drowning off the coast in Pescadero last weekend. Chief Cosgrave will know this better than I do. Again, another unfortunate incident along the coast. This one was down near the Pillar Point Light, or sorry, the Pigeon Point Lighthouse, excuse me. I stayed there as a kid, I should know it. As far as training goes, the truck academy is completed. That was a 2-week academy where 16 students, one of them being a volunteer, completed strictly truck operations. So spotting, driving, ladder placement, cutting holes in roofs, all the really fun stuff. This week, there is a rope rescue technician class being completed at Station 40. That is an open class, which means there's a variety of agencies. I saw students from El Dorado Hills and Menlo Park and others participating in it. The Volunteer Academy is still in progress. They should be done, I believe, this month. And when I say this month, I mean June. Later in June. As far as prevention is concerned, we have now implemented that cloud-based software. If you remember, the grand jury report found that we needed to be using a web-based application for fire prevention. That is now in place. All of the database has been inputted, and they're actually using that. And we continue to receive a very large volume of new construction or tenant improvement plans in the fire prevention office. They're pretty swamped in there. as far as facilities go, the FireNet 6 group who runs our communication system, they are moving the voter, if you remember, the voter machines for what is considered our Command 41 channel is being moved from the old Station 41 to the new Station 41. I think Chief Cosgrave said that the new dedicated T1 line to Redwood City Dispatch was installed. And so that physical move should take place shortly, which is one of the last critical pieces of the old station that we needed to move. The new Utility 40, the vehicle that was purchased last fiscal year, is now in service at Station 40. We will actually be putting old Utility 40 for surplus in the next few months, so expect that to come before the board. The new Training 10 vehicle, as well as the new Battalion Chiefs vehicles, are still being outfitted as well at the moment, so hopefully those will come online soon. As I kind of reiterate with parts and ordering, everything is really hard to procure right now, so we are looking at lead times. Just for your reference, we ordered new SCBA bottles, just the bottles, not the packs. And they said 9 to 12 months on delivery for those bottles. We're crippled by this system right now. And we continue to work through CAD issues with the new CAD with PSC. Chief Cosgrave is very on top of reporting issues with County Dispatch. And then finally, we submitted a new grant application for radios for the volunteers to the Rural Fire Capacity Grant. That's a state administered grant. We'll see how that goes. And on the county fire side, Chief Lord is in the process of implementing the county fire drone grant, which also includes some training for Coastside firefighters assigned to the Coastside. For starting to get the drone program up and running. It looks like we'll be hosting a class for our department here later this year. And if all goes well, we will have 7 drones and hopefully 7 operators to operate them later this year. That's the end of my report.
Bruce, go ahead.
Yeah, Chief. So the SCBA's, are they hydroed out or are we getting?
Yeah.
So they're out of hydro.
Yes, we've lost some to hydro. We've also been at a deficit for the bottles that we need. So right now, they're actually having to fill bottles as they train. And
Sure.
What we're trying to get is the ability to just swap a full rotation.
So a reserve. And how many minute bottles are we getting, the new ones?
So we're sticking with the current packs that we have. So we have 4,500 packs, which are a 45-minute pack.
Okay. All right. Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Steve?
Yes, a few things. So first, the drones. So clarify, those are drones for us, for fire, correct? Because I've been in the stories about the sheriff's office having their own drone system.
Yeah, so this is actually a drone grant that originally was Redwood City in collaboration with a lot of agencies. For a number of reasons, it's now a county fire-led grant. And it is a $250,000 grant for basically 7 drones. The kind of the nice part of it is it's dedicated to fire. Since our personnel work interchangeably between county fire and Coastside, we can train county fire and Coastside firefighters. And since CAL FIRE has what we call a UAS, unmanned aerial system is what the new name is. We have that program, which means we have a certificate of authorization to fly over the entire state. We have a training program. We have, the policies in place. It means we actually kind of get to integrate the local government contract with the state to kind of get the best of both worlds. And I think it's going to be pretty exciting to be the first county for the state at the CAL FIRE level to do such a big implementation of drones.
That's great. I'm glad to hear that. And I'm glad to see that it's somewhat separated from the sheriff's office and the complications that would come with that about privacy and everything else, in my personal opinion. So,
yep.
Worth it. So one quick question too, then Bruce has one. It's always a concern for me of any turnover of personnel when you get into that specialized training for truck training. So what numbers are we talking about within the district of our own personnel that are trained at that truck level? And then have you had an issue with retention and that having to do ongoing training to make sure your numbers stay there?
Yeah, that's a really important question. In fact, Chief Cosgrave, myself, Chief Lord, the training chief, and the two lead cadre instructors for the Truck Academy had a meeting last month to discuss just this. And I'm trying to think off the top of remember off the top of my head, Dave, I think we're at about 70% of personnel in the North Division, which is the county, are trained at the truck level. And I think with one more academy, it gets us up to 83%, which is high. Needless to say, there are multiple truck operators every day within the district. And, you know, we teach this class twice a year just to make sure we're always capturing anybody who's not in it. In fact, we're starting to train now folks who are assigned to wildland engines. So when they work overtime or on a trade day, they're also trained at the same level. But we do keep that in mind, and they have a spreadsheet that they keep because they want to know their exact numbers as well.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Bruce.
So, excuse me, 7 drones and 7 operators. How many coastside? How many bayside?
Yeah, so we haven't broken down who the operators are going to be yet, Director McKimmey, but the plan is to kind of spread it across the 3 programs. So there'll be people in operations who are trained and have drones. There'll be people in training who are trained with drones, and there'll be people in the prevention office who are trained with drones, just so that we don't lean too heavily on operations. If our ops guys are trying to set up a rope system and go over the side, we want to have another person there, a staff position who is able to operate them. I think the next level beyond that is going to be the battalion chief level, so you can call for a second battalion chief. But until we get enough people trained, it's going to be, you know, starting with the 7 and then building it from there.
So coastside, bayside.
I don't know the breakdown yet. There will be, you know, a good way to put it is Ken Lord is the lead of the program. He'll be a drone operator with a drone, and his office is on the coast. So I know there'll be at least one on the coast. I would expect multiple though.
So what's the price breakdown? How much is coastside paying for? How much is bayside paying for?
Coastside's paying 0 and County Fire is paying 0. It's all under a grant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else? Chief Larkin, did you have any comments?
No, I just wanted to let you guys know on the state side, the fire season is moving forward very rapidly. We will be going to full peak staffing on June 1st, and we'll have all 13 of our fire engines and all of our available equipment staffed on the 1st of June. So we're well ahead of schedule, and it's looking to be a busy year already.
Thank you. Before we close out the meeting, it just occurs to me that Cynthia, the board is going to go into closed session at the close of this regular meeting. And I don't, if you're available, I don't know that do you have the Zoom information to connect? Probably not.
I
Can we
do
get
not
that
have
to?
any additional information at this time.
I'll forward it to you right now, Cheryl. Or sorry, Cynthia.
It's sending it to you now. Okay. So
Okay.
it's a separate Zoom identification, and we'll be going into closed session.
Very good.
Okay. All right.
Bye.
Yes, Bruce.
So the monthly stats was, the whole thing was unavailable, and only part of the other side was available. So February, March, April is unavailable on my stat sheet.
Right.
Yep. Welcome to the new CAD system.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Yeah. Speaking about the statistics, the one thing I noticed was number of people leaving the district. So something is going on here. The morale must be very high, because now the whole year so far, no one's left, and I've never seen the turnover this low in the coast side since I've been familiar with the fire department.
It started with the month we hired Chief Cosgrave as the division chief. That's all I'm.
There it is.
Okay. All right. I can tell it's getting late.
Yeah.
I'd like to, in a serious vein, I would like to close our regular meeting here in memory of Tim Moran, who was a former Half Moon Bay fire captain and was a member of the board of directors for a number of years. And Tim passed away, I believe, 2 weeks ago. So we will close the meeting in his memory. And then without objection, the board will adjourn into a closed session in compliance with all legal requirements. And without objection, we are closed in the regular session.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Talk to you next month. Gene Headley
Thank you.
out.
Now, can we just